Hello and welcome. You're watching UATV News with me, Ksenia Buhai. Let's start with the latest developments. Global challenges and Ukraine's response. Participants of the international forum held within the frameworks of the Yalta European strategy are discussing current crises and ways of solving them. Countering the Russian aggression and the COVID-19 pandemic are among the main issues. My colleagues will tell you more.
Politicians, diplomats and opinion leaders from Ukraine and other countries came to Ukraine's flagship cultural institution, the Art Arsenal in Kyiv. An international forum is held here within the framework of the Yalta European strategy.
Here people can meet freely and informally and talk about things we maybe are not talking about every day. Current crisis will take a lot of our time. This networking is the most important thing.
Well, it's definitely important for having a broader discussion on global themes that would affect also Ukraine. Well, there are broader themes affecting the world: COVID, climate action, inclusion. There are cross-cutting themes that should be part of these kind of discussions.
The main topic of the forum is the challenges the post-COVID world faces and the role of Ukraine in the global processes of overcoming the crisis. In his speech at the panel discussion, President Volodymyr Zelensky said that the coronavirus had exposed the problem of inequality in the world arena.
The main conclusion of COVID-19 pandemic, as it seems to me, is that this virus has proven that in fact everyone is on his own. And this is the reality. It showed that equality of the states is one thing and the distribution of vaccines is another. We see that in our planet a human being's life still has a passport and citizenship, and that there are more important lives and there are less important lives.
At the same time, Ukraine showed its strength during the pandemic, say forum participants, but problems still remain.
Economically, Ukraine has performed better than many other countries. This is really a fact. And our economic decline is much less weaker than in the developed countries. But organizationally, we have things to work on. Also, people very quickly forgot about quarantine measures.
Volodymyr Zelensky also spoke about the need for unification, as without Ukraine, NATO and the EU will become weaker. At the same time, the Putin regime in Russia does not weaken aggression, not only against Ukraine, but also against the democratic values of the Western world.
Not everything is moving as fast as I would like to. And as it seems to me, Russia does not want any changes. Russia doesn't see the point in them. They do not see the point in resolving the issue, ending the war and resolving the conflict issue quickly. I just need the result.
The basic problem is that Moscow is committing aggression in Ukraine. It has seized Crimea. It is running a war in Donbas. And it does not yet feel a need to stop. Putin doesn't understand he's not winning in Donbas. When Putin understands he's not winning in Donbas and he cannot win, then he'll withdraw his forces from Donbas.
The events of Yalta European strategy this year are held in a new format of brainstorming. That is, an open informal discussion. Participants discuss different scenarios of impending world catastrophes, major upheavals in international politics, climate change and the development of artificial intelligence. Reported by Vadim Kromer and Yulia Kruchkova, UATV News.
The United States of America will expand assistance to Ukraine for countering Russian aggression. This was stated by the ambassador of Ukraine to the United States, Oksana Markarova, during the meeting between Volodymyr Zelensky and Joe Biden, which took place in Washington, D.C. on September 1st. The parties determined the principles of cooperation in the sphere of defense for the next 5 years. We have the same opinion on issues related to security and defense of Ukraine and the region. The United States has confirmed that it will help us resist Russian aggression. They have been actively helping us in the beginning of aggression, but the new stage of cooperation said that the support is going to expand. This means deepening cooperation in the Black Sea region and the development of defense capabilities on land, sea and air, including in the cybersecurity sector. The UN General Assembly will consider the situation in separate areas of Donetsk and Luhansk regions uncontrolled by Ukraine and in the occupied Crimea. This issue was included in the draft agenda of the Assembly's 76th session, said First Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Emina Japarova. 71 members of the organization voted for such a decision. 12 were against, 45 abstained. We are grateful to all countries that supported Ukrainian international legal order during the voting. Situation in the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine remains in the spotlight of the UN General Assembly. Russia's action that undermined its authority deserved general condemnation. They are shooting, singing patriotic songs and are ready to go on death by order without any hesitation. Russian invaders in Crimea teach children all that from an early age. School kids are called in the so-called young army or are sent to military patriotic centers and camps. There, kids have to wear Russian military uniforms and are given weapons. How is Russia taking away childhood from Ukrainian kids? My colleagues found out.
Kids in Russia-occupied Crimea are being deprived of childhood. Almost from cradle, the invaders instill in Ukrainian children love to Russia, the army and weapons. The so-called youth army, Cossack and cadet classes, military patriotic centers and camps prepare children for war.
Через детское сознание
Common consciousness of the occupied territories population is militarized through child consciousness. It is a fertile ground. Through kids walking with them, occupants ideologically influence the whole society, making people believe that the whole world is an unsafe place. It is scary to live here. There was and will be war.
Children in Crimea are now being taught to fight and not be afraid to die, defending the interests of the occupying country, human rights activists say. Thus, Russia not only violates the Geneva Convention, but literally breaks kids' psyche.
You can see these children in the field shooting. Literally, kids lie with weapons and are taught to shoot at some conventional targets. So we have 7-year-old children who shoot from real weapon. It seems to me that it can no longer be explained by any educational methods, considering removal of fear of death from modern children. Considering removal of fear of death from modern children who happen to live in the occupied territories. In my opinion, it will bring a lot of hard work for psychologists, and I'm even scared to imagine what we're going to face after the occupation of our territories.
The human rights activist states that a peak of Russian invaders' cynicism is a song performed by Crimean kids. The song doesn't fit children at all. It tells about some Uncle Vova and kids' willingness to give their lives for him. According to historian Andriy Ivanets, militarization of children in Crimea is one of the most serious war crimes committed by Russia at the occupied territories.
This is one of the most dramatic consequences of Crimea occupation. The occupants faced the fact that Crimean children grew up in reality of Ukraine. Russia was unfamiliar to them. So invaders decided to change this totally with the help of massive military propaganda. They artificially involved children into militaristic games and events, thus creating future cannon fodder from the citizens of Ukraine living in Crimea.
Ukrainian human rights activists have collected the evidence of the involvement of 12 people in the militarization of children in the occupied Crimea and have already submitted the list to the prosecutor's office of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea. It includes the so-called Minister of Education, Russia-controlled Crimean Commissioner for Children's Rights and school directors. Reported by Vadim Kromer and Valery Bakus, UATV News.
The new tranche of the International Monetary Fund for Ukraine may exceed $700 million. The fund's mission is expected to arrive in Kyiv until the end of September, said head of the National Bank of Ukraine, Kyrylo Shevchenko. He noted that the size of the tranche could be larger. Last time the fund's mission worked in Ukraine in winter. This month it is going to assess Ukraine's readiness for the allocation of a new tranche.
The second tranche should amount some $700 million, but given the omission of several tranches, the amount may be higher. But we will learn more about this after the discussion in September. Implementation of the IMF program will also allow receiving official financing from other sources, will help reduce rates on external borrowing and support foreign interests of the parties to hryvnia assets.
The parliament launched the reform of the National Bank of Ukraine. 283 MPs voted for the corresponding bill in the first reading. The document redistributes powers in the structure of the National Bank of Ukraine and also raises the requirements for the members of the Council and the head of the National Bank. The reform of the National Bank is one of the requirements of the International Monetary Fund to provide the next tranche to Ukraine.
There
is a redistribution of powers between the Council of the National Bank and the Board of the National Bank. As for the powers of the National Bank, some are reduced and some are increased. That is, this is such a technical bill aimed at the independence of the National Bank. With these bills, we complete the reform of the banking system and the National Bank as the first level of the banking system in Ukraine.
If we fail to ensure the independence of the National Bank within the country, then in cooperation with the IMF, we have to do it. The National Bank is one of the important milestones that should work in accordance with international standards in order for us, from the economic point of view, to move towards clear interaction, rules and cooperation with all our international partners. Utility prices in Ukraine will remain on the same level they are now. This was stated by Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal answering the MP's questions in the parliament. He noted that tariffs for electricity and gas are fixed, but the Cabinet of Ministers will help local authorities in regulating prices for hot water and heating. According to head of the government, Ukraine is ready for cold weather. The heating season will begin without delays. Besides, more than 2 million Ukrainians have already applied for subsidies, getting ready for cold weather.
The tariff for electricity is fixed. As we said, it has not changed over the past year. It hasn't changed for the heating season for this year. For those who use less than 250 kilowatts per month, the electricity tariff has decreased. Regarding the gas tariff, the Naftogaz, being a state-owned company, offered the product under the resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, which currently makes a little less than 8 hryvnias.
The new rules in case of the next wave of COVID-19 are being developed by the Ministry of Health. They are planned to be less strict than earlier. Businesses might be allowed to work even in the red zone, while people will be able to visit cafes and restaurants. However, this applies to not only those who received a certificate of complete vaccination against COVID-19. According to the chief sanitary doctor of Ukraine, now the health ministry is getting ready to introduce 2 internal certificates, the green and yellow ones. The first is for those who have completed the vaccination course. The second is for those who received only the first dose of vaccine.
In any case, the use of certificates for us is a key mechanism that still allows us to control the situation, when the vaccinated people are allowed to work in certain orange and red zones. Besides, with the help of such digital solutions, we can regulate access to epidemically dangerous objects, so to say. Those are catering establishments or cultural and entertainment facilities.
A chance to hear Belgian doctors, together with Lviv specialists, performed microsurgeries for patients with hearing problems. During 5 days in Lviv, foreign doctors conducted dozens of consultations for little patients and shared experience with their Ukrainian colleagues. Details next.
1.5-year-old Maxim from Chernivtsi region was brought for the operation on cochlear implantation to Lviv. The boy was diagnosed with a 3rd-degree deafness from birth.
He is almost completely deaf at his right and left ear. When we speak to him, he does not respond. He does not react to us, but when we start talking loudly, then he responds.
14-year-old Nazar had already passed 2 operations, but they didn't give any results. Now Belgian doctors have installed a back apparatus for him, which according to experts will 100% help the boy hear better.
I couldn't hear the teachers well at school, but I tried to listen to them. Sometimes my brother helped me, and sometimes the teachers came to me closer and spoke to me.
We addressed the Belgians. They saw all the documents and immediately confirmed that we're 100% subject for this operation, especially since my son has a genetic problem, the hot worm syndrome, so it is definitely all that is needed.
In order to perform microsurgical interventions, the city has allocated money to purchase the equipment for Lviv Children's Clinical Hospital.
We are glad that those operations, in fact very complicated operations on installing cochlear implants, were performed in our children's hospital. We can walk now as we have equipment on which we can walk. We have absolutely all the tools needed.
The Belgian doctors performed surgeries for free. They say this is how they share their experience with their Ukrainian colleagues.
We had three objectives with this project. The first, of course, is to provide a high level of health care to patients. The second, it was to be confident on the fact that this kind of surgery could be performed also in this hospital. And the third one is to make local surgeons autonomous in order to be in the next future to perform by themselves this kind of surgery even here. I have to say that I'm glad that the last days that we are here, that this objective have been fulfilled.
We just needed to have an experienced surgeon nearby, even in simpler operations, which we can now perform independently. The doctors were always with us.
In the future, Lviv doctors plan to invite Polish specialists for cooperation. They plan to open a center for hearing and speech. Reported by Vadim Kramer and Yulia Bil, UATV News.
That was our final story for this week. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned. More updates on our official website, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter pages.